What's up, guys? Happy 4th of July weekend to you all. This is episode 69 of Talk Wrestling here on every website known to man, as I've said in the past. Today we have a very special guest, first-time guest ever in the history of No DQ Media. Never had this guy on before in any incarnation of the shows I've done. Dave Marquez, representing the National Wrestling Alliance. He is here at Big Vision today, and we're going to have a great interview with him. We got questions from you, questions from me. Let's get this thing started. Again, happy 4th of July, and we'll see you inside. Go big time. So we're back. We are here in the offices of David Marquez. Good to finally get you on camera.
Thanks.
I've been wanting one interview ever since I met you at Vince McMahon's ceremony back was that last year.
Okay.
Last year. Just wanted to get some information from you because I'm a fan of the NWA. I love the NWA. I love that you guys have brought the prestige back to the championship. You guys have actually made an effort to ever since the breakaway from TNA actually say the NWA, we're proud, we're back, we're actually doing our thing. And I wanted to get information from you first because I've seen you do various things, including work for the company I work for, Epic, and just wanted to know, to give the fans information, where did you get your start? How did you come into being the wrestling business and go from there?
Well, it started here in Southern California, doing odds and ends stuff at the Olympic Auditorium.
Okay.
As a kid.
Oh, wow.
And I've always been intrigued with professional wrestling, but for more of a broadcast side and what the television offers. Events and cards are fun, but when you're making television, it's a whole lot more fun.
I bet.
When looking at wrestling, I always looked at it from a different direction. It wasn't just the matches for me. It was how does it all come together, and then when the people leave, what's the reaction? And that I dare call it gratification, but that piece that when they do leave with a smile on their face or a frown, depending on the situation. As it progressed, I went into I worked for Disney for a while, as a real job, in many capacities, whether it was at the studios or doing odds and ends and whatnot, or there's Disneyland or you name it. I've probably done it from a public relations or a guest relations standpoint. Got an opportunity to move to Springfield, Missouri in the early 90s and work for an NBC station there called KYTV.
Okay.
And did very small gig there. But I realized that being a news jock wasn't necessarily what I wanted to do. Being able to see technology and broadcasting and all this other stuff that it's in wrestling, and whether it's sports or news or whatever it is, how to get the information out of the people, and that's what intrigued me. So while I was out there, an opportunity came up at one of the local stations to fill some time late night, and a bunch of us got together and acquired the time, and this was about 96, I want to say. And I had known Carl Lauer from being from Los Angeles and him at the Olympic and whatnot. And I bumped into Carl. The funny thing is I just bumped into him at the mall in Springfield, and hey, you're the wrestling guy. Anyhow, Carl lived in Rolla, Missouri. He'd retired and had a cattle ranch out there, and we just started talking about wrestling and what can we do, and that turned into a fantastic few-year relationship where I started a company called World Legion Wrestling.
Remember that.
And that was my company, and eventually I brought on partners, Harley Race and Gordon Soley, and we ran that together for a few years. Harley still has it now. It's called World League Wrestling.
Right.
And they put a lot of effort and emphasis into doing, and training good people out there. But that also led to stints at the WWF, very small things, and WCW, Memphis, and the surrounding areas, and I dare say what was left of territories, but it was a fantastic learning process because you had these guys who would come in and tell you all this stuff and what was out there and what opportunities were there if you went out to look for them. And then, Gordon was getting sick, and or he was already sick.
Right.
And I was kind of homesick too, so it all kind of worked. I came back home in '99. When I was here, Al Isaacs gave me a ring and said, "There's a guy named Rick Bassman that you probably might want to go see." And he set the meeting up, and I went down to the Galaxy Theater, wearing my name tag and all from Disney. And many people don't know this. Bassman was also a Disney management type guy at the Disney MGM Studios at one time. So we had that connection. He made fun of me wearing a name tag when I got there. But I got there. They hired me to be their producer director of their video way back when. And this was about the time Cena was coming in. Samoa Joe was there already. Chris Daniels was there. I mean, the creative team was Chris Bell, who did the documentary Bigger, Faster, Stronger. My time at UPW was winding down, and things at Disney were picking up a little more, and so I kind of gave wrestling up until I got another call. I can't remember who called me though, but they said that if I've ever heard of XPW, and I hadn't at all, and they said they can use some help down there, and so I can't remember who set the meeting up, but I went down to the Extreme offices and met Kevin Kleinrock, and our first meeting was very interesting. Kevin was this, I dare call him spunky, but innovative type of a guy who had a lot of respect for wrestling, and he understood media as well, which was great. Rob was interesting, and everybody who was in that operation was something I've never been in before. I think people who know me, square isn't the definition, but pretty straight laced.
Well, God, anything for XPW is pretty.
Yeah, but it was interesting to be in that office,
yeah,
you
sure.
know, and the personalities that would walk around that place and what you'd get out of it or not get out of it or whatever. But it was a fun time. My biggest thing I think I did with them was I directed the Free Fall show.
Okay.
That was a multi-camera truck situation, and then I think I was out of there right before their Genocide show, I think it was called.
Okay.
And then I had just gone altogether. But at that point, this is a whole total switch in my career. I went and worked for Nicolas Cage. And through Disney, he brought me in as a development executive at Saturn Films. Mm-hmm. And I was in the picture business for a while. I'm not going to say I loved it, but it was an interesting time, and to be on Sunset Boulevard in that 9,000 building, looking down at the Roxy and the Rainbow Room down there, it was just very interesting, the different type of entertainment that I ended up in, and how it all, came together. So I somehow got in contact with Simon Inoki, or he got in contact with me, and I was doing part-time work for New Japan. When they were opening up the dojo, maybe Justin McCulley was the one who brought me in on that, and all that. But I got there, and originally what they wanted me to do was use whatever development connections that I had to help raise the awareness of New Japan brand in the United States. Mm-hmm. And by this point, I'd made an awful lot of friends in wrestling, and I've been able to call on those favors and do a few things. My first big thing at New Japan was I brokered the deal between the WWE and New Japan for the I don't know if it was the Chris Benoit DVD or the Eddie Guerrero DVD that had all the New Japan footage on it. It was one of those DVDs.
Very likely Benoit, yeah.
The Super Junior footage. Well, I brokered that deal, and that was the first thing that I've ever done was. For New Japan, I put that licensing agreement together.
Wow. And
then that led to other opportunities within there, and we tried doing other business with them and all that other stuff. In the 90s, with World Legion Wrestling, we were a member of the NWA back then.
Oh, okay.
Gordon Soley had us join, and Howard Brody was the president at the time. Bill Behrens was the vice president. Okay. Dennis Carluzzo was around at that time. Bob Trowbridge was the attorney, and then the members that were around. I got the membership of Missouri from Ed Schumann, who was a dear friend to this day, And anyhow, Mr. Inoki, Antonio Inoki, was the NWA member in Japan at the time. And I was trying to figure out how to help the New Japan name in the United States, and the only way that made sense for me was, since we had a relationship with TNA, the NWA did at that time, that it would help boost the awareness of the brand and the promotion here in the United States, and allow it to, to keep going and getting bigger, so we thought. But what it did do was it allowed the New Japan guy, it did work eventually, it just didn't work for Los Angeles. It allowed us to create a nice synergy between New Japan and TNA that they still enjoy today. A lot of guys came in, a lot of guys went out. I learned an awful lot during that time. And then, for legal reasons that I can't go into, the relationship with TNA ended. We acquired our intellectual property. And
Are you talking about in the one 04, 07? Because I remember TNA broke away from the NWA.
No, they have never broken away. That's incorrect.
Okay, correct me.
No, when we stripped them of the championships, that's when the relationship ended.
Oh, okay.
They had never left the organization. When NWA TNA turned into TNA Wrestling, it was a branding prerogative from Panda Energy when they were on Fox Sports.
Oh.
So, again, that goes into a lot of the legal stuff that I'm not going to talk about, but they were always a part of the NWA. They wouldn't have kept the championships.
Yeah.
No, let me take that back. They were never a member of the NWA. It was a licensing agreement. Mm-hmm. And the whole deal could have worked, but it didn't.
Here we are downstairs at Big Vision, and behind Aaron, he's going to show you in just a second, is the entire XPW library. For those who don't know XPW, you should. It's on my MySpace. It's on the Talk Wrestling MySpace. They're actually having another show, the 10th year anniversary show. Is that correct? Are you guys producing that one?
No, Mike Hartsfield is actually promoting that.
Oh, okay.
That's all Mike.
Okay. Well, then I won't plug it too much on the show.
No, please plug it. Mike's a friend, and he's a very big advocate of the brand, and him and Kevin came up with an agreement, but Big Vision doesn't have much to do with it. That's all Mike.
Okay. Well, I mean, here you are. Here's the ones with the covers on them over here to Aaron's left. And then as Aaron pans around the entire, XPW TV, the big events, everything is all down here categorized and everything. And it's pretty cool.
Yeah, this is
Ghost Hunters over here.
Yeah, this is the archive.
This is the archives of Big Vision right here.
Yeah,
this is crazy.
It's pretty neat.
Awesome. I got some questions from the fans. This one's from Greg Cherry, who actually works in the NWA East promotion. He wants to know, will NWA ever have combined shows featuring all the territories, such as Main Event, the East, Mid-South, etc.?
Well, I would say that, sure, there's that opportunity. Now, mind you, I would like to state this for the record, I am not the head guy in the NWA.
Okay.
I am just more of a higher profile promoter that does things a little bigger than the other guys, which is why people know my name or know what we do. We run arenas. Yeah. A lot of people don't do that. Right. We do. It was a gutsy move, and we decided to do it, and it's worked for us. But from a talent standpoint and doing a combined effort card, usually that stuff doesn't work. Okay. Just in reality. We used to do anniversary shows.
I remember that.
Where we had 40 matches on a card because everybody had to have something, and it just didn't work. So that's why we stopped doing it. And then the Phillips Arena event that I did last year in Atlanta, Georgia, at the Phillips Arena, that was our 60th anniversary event, where we did bring in a larger name talents from the area, from the different territories, and put them on that event. But things swing both ways. I would also encourage this person to talk to his promoter and see what he can do.
I'm sure.
I'm not the only promoter in the organization.
Okay.
So I would certainly say that everybody has the opportunity to make a phone call and ask a talent if they're available and what their rates are and put a card together. I'm not the only guy that can do that. Okay. So I'd say to go ahead and ask his his home promoter or other NWA promoters that same question.
This is from the Inoki Dojo, right, Dave?
Yeah, this is from our Tokon Fighting Spirit show that aired locally on KVMD in Los Angeles. Had a very small run. If you can see right there, you know you can't, but that's CM Punk doing commentary with Todd Kennelly and a guy by the name of Scott Corvier. Some wrestling fans in the area might know him as Scott Snot.
I do.
But
yes.
we made him an announcer and called him Scott Corvier. So this was a TV show that actually aired. Tayama there, that's a New Japan Pro Wrestling referee, Tayama, that people would recognize from the Tokyo Dome and all those events.
This is from Jake Steele. He wanted to know: Are you looking into the territories and seeing who you want to put on the showcase show? Because you see a lot of guys from SoCal on the showcase show. But are you looking into other territories and saying, okay, we'll put this one on showcase, this one on showcase?
Well, sure. I mean, in the beginning we had a lot of Southern California guys, but if you've been to any of our events recently in television, Phil Shatter was out here from the East Coast, the Sheik from Florida. Our World Tag Team Champions come from the Midwest. You know, we have the Skull Crushers. You know, Apollo from Puerto Rico, Caden Murdoch. There are guys that, Little Guido. There's more than just SoCal talent in our programs. The Canadians came down from Dave Republic's area. We have guys from Utah and Denver and Arizona, and the Border Patrol comes from Northern California. And mind you, this is the first time, probably the last 4 years, this is the first time in the history of the organization that the West Coast actually is a hub. It's always been a southern or a southeastern thing.
Another question from Chris Purington. Every promotion has a set of champions that they have to defend on their shows or their companies, and they're determined by the promoter in the local area. Back in the day, the NWA champion was determined by the board of directors. Is that still in place to this day?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a board of directors, and it's ran by Bob Trowbridge, and they look at who's going up and down the roads and who's having the matches and who deserves to be in those opportune spots to have championship matches. So that's all put together. But the board of directors does the matchmaking when it comes to what's called they control the world titles and the national titles here in the U.S.
Okay.
Those major championships. In the West Coast area, our top title is called the Heritage Championship, and it's held by Oliver John right now.
That's right. Yep.
And those are, I dare call it our own board of directors or championship committees, but I do pool and resource all of the NWA sanctioned promotions on this side that I'm involved with. And, in this area, you have SoCal Pro Wrestling, the AWS, Empire Wrestling with Jesse Hernandez, Gabe Ramirez up in San Francisco and San Jose area with Pro Wrestling Revolution. And then it even goes out where our hub continues to go. It goes to IZW in Phoenix. It goes up to in Utah, and then over in Denver with Fusion. And then we have a fantastic association with Mexico City, and in Australia we have two companies in Australia. So in Perth and Adelaide called Explosive Pro Wrestling. So those are the people who I actively work with. But then on the East Coast too, we have Mario Savaldi and Ricky Otazu promoting in Maine as NWA On Fire, and that goes all the way down to New Jersey.
Okay.
So, our fingers are pretty thick. But you see Brian Danielson and Joey Ryan in 2005.
Early Joey Ryan before he got all sleazy.
And he was sleazy back then.
I hadn't quite met this character yet, but yeah.
But we, if you didn't live in the Los Angeles area and happened to catch KVMD when it was on, this is probably the first time anyone's ever seen this. As there's a lot of footage we have here. We do hold on to a lot of
I'm seeing that as I walk through here.
Here's Shane Kidder. Shane's photos.
Oh my God, Shane's still around too. Wow.
Shane is probably he is the best photographer on the West Coast, if you ask me. He should be in Wrestling Illustrated magazine now and a lot of other things, and he's a great guy.
the switches between Albright and Pierce. How did that go down? Broken the deal with Ring of Honor, or is there a deal with Ring of Honor? And how did you come to defend the World Heavyweight Championship at Ring of Honor? Because Ring of Honor is their own separate entity.
Sure it is.
How did you come to defend the title there? How did that happen?
Well, you know, relationships are what they are, and opportunities are there to be taken. And if you watch the whole, well, let's take a little history lesson in wrestling.
Okay.
Not everybody was associated with the NWA back in the day. Bill Watts was never a member of the National Wrestling Alliance.
Correct.
Although he recognized the NWA World Title. Why? Because he only promoted in Oklahoma at that time.
Right.
You know, so it would be kind of absurd to have a world's champion of Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Although we have probably 9 world's champions in Southern California who never leaves, you know, their city limits. So that was kind of what was going through my mind when we were thinking about locations for championship matches. I mean, when we were in Atlanta doing our big event and our Hall of Fame ceremony, if you remember, Adam Pearce brought that belt out in Philadelphia.
I remember.
So, and that was what was starting this whole wave in a relationship with Ring of Honor. The Ring of Honor, they do respect the history of our organization, and they were just as happy to have the match on their cards just as much as we were to be in with them. So, you know, Kerry and Sid, and at the time Gabe, I've had a great relationship with Gabe for many years. We did a Best of American Super Juniors together in Asbury Park a couple years back when I was with New Japan, and you know, it just seemed right. And the Hammerstein in New York, we never had an opportunity to have a world title match in the New York area because that was a WWF area,
right.
And they were the promoter, and you know history in New York and Turner or Atlanta or whatever you want to call it. There's always been that rivalry, and so when we had the opportunity to do the matchmaking and put it together on that card, that's what we felt it was the most appropriate spot. And if you've watched the video, the people there, they recognized that the championship means something, and when Brent Albright became the champion, that place exploded. But we had an opportunity of doing this, and it was great. And the funny thing is, if you look at that camera operator too, there's a funny story there, is that that is Marty Elias, WWE referee Marty Elias.
Oh my God!
He was sitting in the audience, and I needed a camera operator because the other camera operator was stuck on the freeway or something. And I'm directing, and he could hear me in his ear, so he wasn't that good, if I remember correctly. But that's why we're not cutting to his camera, even though there's a shot there.
There you go.
But that's referee Marty Elias. And the other camera operator is Chris Bell, director of Bigger, Faster, Stronger.
Right on.
So, I mean, we've been in touch with a lot of great people who have gone pretty far in this industry.
Adam Demoy, this is before you came into the NWA, but I want to get your take on it. He was wondering your take on the Shane Douglas incident when he threw down the championship back in 1994. Did that affect the future course of the NWA as far as the modern wrestling community? Did it take away from the prestige for a time? And how hard has it been to rebuild the brand since then?
There's about 15 answers there. I was not a part of the NWA at the time, but I was in the business, and I understand why they did it. I don't agree that they did it, but I understand why they did it.
Okay.
Did it set the NWA back? Absolutely. You know, you just lose your biggest member in World Championship Wrestling. You got to remember, they were a member of the organization. Then you have this fight that was going on between the NWA, Titan Sports, and Turner Broadcasting over the world title and Ric Flair jumping around. So you have that little controversy going on. And then you have Japan and their ideas of what the world champion was at that time. You had Muda and Chono.
Chono and Wyndham and all them, yeah.
You know, and then Wyndham, and then Rick Rude became the champion or wasn't the champion, or he was the NWA International Champion, or whatever you want to call it. But it was the belt that they're using today on the I think the Raw show. I think that's where they use it.
SmackDown.
But at any rate, you have that, And then you make it, and the NWA didn't have television at that point, you know?
Right.
You still had prominent promoters. Jim Crockett was still a member of the organization in Dallas. Ricard, he was around. You know, yeah, you had all these different promoters who were actually doing business. Dennis Carluzzo was doing big business, Howard Brody, all those guys. But when that happened, it really, actually, I don't think Howard Brody was around during that time, now I think about it. I could be wrong, and Howard will tell me if I'm wrong if he sees this.
I'm sure he will.
But you had all this, and I'm sure it's in his book. He has a book called Swimming with Piranhas coming out soon, Howard.
Cheap plug.
But you have, so you have this incident, you have this big tournament, you have pretty good names in it, and Shane Douglas gets the championship and they throw it down, and we don't have major television, the organization at that time, and it all just kind of crumbles. And it doesn't crumble from the sense of the interior. It doesn't implode. Mm-hmm. The interior is still intact because we've been the same organization for over 60 years.
Right.
So we've never went away. Now the mindset of people when they see things, much like you said, TNA left the organization, when WCW withdrew from the NWA, they left. When the Todd Gordon Company came into the NWA and were doing something with the belt, and now they throw the belt down and leave the organization had to pick itself up and figure out what's the next thing can we do, and now we're scrambling, and I think it went to Jim Cornette and Smoky Mountain
with Candido,
and Chris Candido became the champion. So, you know, we were still surviving, and we were still doing events and putting on cards. We know our position. We know our place in pro wrestling. We know we're not the WWE. We know we're not TNA. And we know we're not Ring of Honor. But they're also not us. Right. And what we've been doing is re-educating not just a sector of the public, but also the talent. And really retraining the talent of what it means to be a traveling wrestler and what it means to really be an independent contractor. And our television is, to me, is a necessary evil, but we're learning. Do we have a big cable deal? Well, no. You know, but we do have a couple of fantastic sponsors. I'm the only wrestling company that say the Coca-Cola company is a sponsor of mine.
I think you're right.
You know that? Vince McMahon, they're not. You don't see Coke
no.
products. I think Sprite every once in a while might do something with them, but as a steady sponsor, we have it. But I was told this just the other day by our techs here is that McMahon beat us to high definition playback and recording. Actually, we were recording in high def before he was, and TNA. So, that small little bit, but nobody cares, nobody knows about it, doesn't matter. But from a technology standpoint on our end, that's a big achievement. And we've been able to broadcast back in some markets in high def, and that's fun. The Dish Network channel we're on, it's limited. People don't know about it. Or they're ignorant to the fact that it's on the air, and they won't look for it because it's not handed to them. Here you go, So they have to work with me just as much as I have to work with them, and it's a give and take in some ways. And then the talent we've been putting on those programs, especially from the lucha side, we can't afford Hulk Hogan or Randy Savage, but we can afford El Santo and Blue Demon. And they have just as many loyal followers, and their money spends the same way.
NWWrestling.com, any other plugs you want to throw in there, like for the show?
Every Friday on the West Coast, Friday at 3 o'clock on Dish Network Channel 9407, or on the West Coast at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, you can catch NWA Wrestling Showcase featuring all the new talent and champions that the NWA has to offer. And we do appreciate your support of the organization, and we're a small staff and we're doing what we can, but we're at least doing it, and I do thank you.
We'll see you next time on Talk Wrestling.